Professor of the BAIA and BFA Capstone with a graduating group, the fall 25 graduating students. And I just have a few things that I want to say, and then we'll get started with our artist talks today. So there, I'll let you know first, this is one of several events that the students have organized for their Capstone celebration. And the big one is on Thursday, December 11th. We'll be having a reception of an incredible exhibition at the Summers Gallery and the art department lobby from 1 to 3 on Thursday, December 11th. And then from 3 to 4, we're going to have a closing ceremony and two wonderful performances by two of the students in Keller Hall. And there is a flyer about that back at that table, so take that to remember, and that's really going to be something special. There's also, if you are connected somehow to one of these amazing students, which I think you are, there's an incredible catalog that's been produced by the group here, and ask that each student got 2 catalogs. BAIA and art department will each get 2 catalogs as well, so check these out. They're wonderful. So let me say a few things about this group. First off, I do want to I just want to read this incredible statement that they wrote for the program about this theme of polarity. An incredible logo that they collectively came up with. So polarity refers to the quality or condition inherent in a system that exhibits opposite properties or powers. Our students' understanding and execution of polarity is not limited to just those extremes, but encompasses everything that exists in between. In this way, polarity represents a spectrum, a dynamic space, rather than stagnant poles. A collection of 22 interdisciplinary artists, including but never limited to writers, photographers, printmakers, painters, sculptors, performers, and fiber artists. The work of this UNM Fall 25 Capstone students spans the spectrum between the poles of creative possibility. We operate across a wide range of artistic forms and practices, exploring the continuum that stretches across approaches, materials, and disciplines. We are not limited to one end or to the opposite. We exist at both and everywhere and in between. And because I am a nerdy academic, I cannot help but think about this group in terms of alliterative words. And so I came up with 4 C's that makes me think of these students. And one is capable. That's really the first thing that I think of, because they came in and have done such incredible things. They have been so capable. And when you see their work here and in the exhibition and in the performances, these are students who are just making things happen, and they're incredible things. And a lot of the things you'll see in the exhibition and here are, were just completed since the holiday, since Thanksgiving. Pretty amazing. They're committed. They are really committed to their discipline. They are committed to their work. They are committed to their ideas. And it's just incredibly inspiring to see. And they're collaborative. In order to produce this event, the exhibition, there'll be a website, and the performances, they have had to collaborate with each other in so many different ways, and they've really, back to that capable, they have jumped in with so many different communication ways and so many different ways of working with each other. 22 students, it's really an achievement. And on the last C, I think about with this group that I think is so important today and now, I think believing in each other, is caring. I see them with warning each other about the things, the topics that they're dealing with in their work, and making sure that no one is feeling uncomfortable. They're caring about needs when students are in crisis, which they have been here. They help each other. They pick up the slack for each other. The work that you see is, in my view, is also evident of their caring. They're caring about their world. They're caring about their environment. They're caring about each other through the work that they're creating. So I'm going to stop blathering on and let these amazing students tell you what they've been up to and what they've done. Everybody's going to speak for 5 minutes. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to give you guys your 1 minute warning, just to let you know. Everybody's name is in the program. This is not the order of everybody, so please, presenters, please state your name before you present so everybody knows who you are and can follow along. Okay, without any further delay, the fall 2025 graduating class.
Great. Hey. Hi, everyone. I'm Adrian Riccalucci. I use an expanded painting practice that employs textiles to explore kind of the relationship between vision and touch. So I think textiles have a really incredible way of transcending the separation of those things. When we look at a piece like this, we can tell that the fabric is delicate because of how it cinches where there are knots, and it becomes like, the pleats become kind of invisible. You can't see like ripples like you would with a thick canvas. The way that it reflects light shows that it's silky. And this kind of shows me how our sense of vision isn't just us in perceiving something externally, but is very much linked to our memory. And the way that we see things is actually coming a lot from things that we remember having seen before, interacted with before. The way that I create these ripples in the fabric is through a technique called smocking. It starts with a grid. So I take a piece of fabric, I lay yarn over it in a grid, I spray paint on it, and then I paint these lines that connect corners of the grid. That's where I stitch those two corners together, and that creates these ripples like this. This is the finished piece from those previous two slides. I started smocking, these are the next few slides are some of my earliest pieces. I started smocking because I work full-time through school, so I was hoping to be a painter that just spent hours uninterrupted in the studio, and that wasn't going to happen for me. The thing that was cool about stitching is that I could bring it on the road when I was commuting or when I was, at work and had some downtime. So there's kind of a history of this stitching used in domestic arts and crafts by women who maybe are taking care of many kids at home, have something on the stove. For me, it allowed me to actually take my practice into the public sphere. I started working with paper and exhibited this piece at the UNM Art Museum this past year. It also uses this smocking technique and uses smocked fabric to press ink onto paper, creating those various textures. And then some of the paper is stitched and all of it is sewn together by machine. So I'm using motifs from the body, including kind of inkjet prints of cells. I'm really interested in how our bodies can kind of be overtaken, or a sense of our bodies can be overtaken by things happening at the cellular level, like diseases or illnesses. And I'm starting to try to use mirrors to kind of reflect the viewer in the piece and also situate the pieces as bodies in space. So that's what I've been exploring with my most recent body of work. This one uses this broken, shattered mirror that has a really strong affect and solicits a sense of like there's some violence being done. And that's kind of where my practice is at right now. Thank you all so much for listening.
Hi, my name is Chris Ober, and I'm an interdisciplinary artist. And I want to talk a little bit about where my journey began because I've had a very interesting time with my art practice as it's grown over the years. Where my artistic journey began was my years as a vocal performer. In high school, I discovered the power of the human voice, not as a sound, not just as a sound, but as a vessel for storytelling and emotion. That passion carried me into college, where my world expanded through choir, oratorio, and opera. College was where I truly learned what it meant to be part of something larger than myself. Singing in choir taught me the discipline of blending my voice in a collective sound, where individual expression served greater harmony. Oratorio gave me the chance to explore sacred and dramatic texts, immersing myself in music and demanding both technical precision and deep emotional resonance. And this is where I step fully into character, embodying stories through music, gesture, and stagecraft. Those performances challenged me to push beyond my comfort zone, to inhabit roles that stretch my voice and imagination. Yet, after those formative years, I stepped away from music and art for a time. Life pulled me in other directions, and I found myself distanced from the creative practices that had once defined me. That pause was not an ending, but a space. A silence that would eventually make my return to art even more meaningful. This is where my art became expressive in sculpture as well as performance. My current work lives at the intersection of voice and form, where sound becomes almost tangible and objects vibrate with their own inner resonance. As both a sculptor and a vocal performer, I explore how the body communicates biodiversity and regenerative practice through breath, line, texture, and tone to reveal the unseen connections between each of us. Across both practices, I seek to create experiences that are embodied, intimate, and transformative in our regenerative and considerate practices. My work invites audiences to feel the voice as structure and the sculptor as breath, two mediums converging in a shared exploration of biodiversity, conscientiousness, and the expressive potential of the human form. This is how I formulate my work. I am moved by the culture's ambivalence with how we think we support nature and how we end up supporting nature, by giving it a hand out rather than a hand up. The process that followed, my conviction, established a creative flow state. When I work, it is an extension of my drive to reach out to people in meaningful ways, impacting them with the invitation to live a regenerative life. A major component to regenerative lifestyle is to reuse and recycle. Saving materials from the trash can give them new life if done with intention. I saw that potential for rebirth in every scrap nut, bolt, and bracket I was left with after an automotive repair when those old parts were destined for the scrap heap. That virtual ferrous trash became a narrative to me of irresponsible consumerism and the constant insatiable drive of industry. The creation of the upward-reaching mechanical forearm in my current piece is the culmination of humanistic hunger reaching endlessly to satisfy a deeper need in vain. This outlook was bleak, and dwelling in that place does no favors for the heart. Realizing that I needed a change in perspective, I decided to commune in the bosque. I spent many days walking amongst the cottonwoods, seeing the flourishing life reaching for the heavens, and how resilient our biodiversity can be in the face of fires and distress. I realized that while industry strives relentlessly, so does the biodiversity around us. Both reach for the stars to see how far they can go, and both compete for their stake in our world. It came as a still, small voice. Maybe the driving industry can be an ally rather than an adversary to the natural world we are responsible for stewarding. That is how the reaching hands came to be. The cottonwood hand in my current piece at John Summers Gallery, while overshadowed, continues to reach for the very best, just as consuming industry does. And while we always aim to support the growth of nature's reach, industry must remember that it stewards biodiversity, and that in collaboration with one another, they can both lend a helping hand. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Marisol Velasquez, and I'm originally from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I will be graduating this semester with a degree in business and photography. I started out as a film major, but slowly transitioned into photography after my first semester, and now I'm a digital and film photographer. In my work, I'm drawn to photographing the familiar, people, clothing, and spaces that might seem ordinary at first glance. My process often involves collaboration, improvisation, and most importantly, spending time with my subjects. I'm interested in themes of memory, identity, and class, and I use photography to explore how style and self-expression can come from places that are often overlooked. This project is a collection of photographs that use a high fashion approach, but instead of designer labels, the clothing is secondhand. I asked my model to strike bold, sharp, and interesting poses, but the settings and outfits remain grounded, accessible, and real. The contrast between high fashion energy and everyday environments is where the work really comes alive for me. Clothing holds memories. Thrifting has always been a part of my life and my family's life. When I was younger, secondhand shopping was from time to time something that people teased us for. It was often associated with not having enough. I love seeing how our generation is reshaping that stigma in today's world. Thrifting is affordable, expressive, and accessible. It allows people to build identity in a way that is personal, resourceful, and creative. I want this work to emphasize and glamorize that. This project stood out to me because it allowed me to celebrate something deeply familiar to me, while also experimenting with style and performance. It's playful, it's bold, and it reflects how I continue to explore a relationship between environment, identity, and the stories we carry in our clothes. My work will continue to investigate how everyday aesthetics can be elevated, reclaimed, and honored, and how photography can help us see value in places and histories that shaped us. And finally, I would like to thank my model, Mari McLean-Yu, for collaborating with me on this project, for bringing so much love, energy, and openness to the process, and for always showing up for me. She truly made this project possible, and I couldn't be more grateful for that. Talked a little fast, sorry. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Hale, and my preferred name is Ash. I am a multimedia and fiber artist, and I will be graduating this semester with my bachelor's in studio arts. I don't actually have any slides for you today, but that's mostly because I wanted to get more of a personal experience than something that was scripted, as that is kind of what my art encompasses. My piece for this semester is called Unraveling, and it is a multimedia but primarily fiber piece that displays sort of the encompassment of everything that is me. Some of the things that comprise the piece include pink handcuffs with some crocheted tampons attached to the chains to represent sort of the pink tax that women face. There is a long flowing skirt with specifically 11 stars around the belt area for my dog who actually just passed this semester. Her name was Star, and she was 11 when she passed. And there are also some evil eyes at the bottom to represent sort of the more spiritual aspects. I do hope that you'll take a little bit of a closer look at the top head of the display, as there are sort of intersectional symbols and phrases that comprise some of the spiritual, religious, and social aspects that have kind of formed who I am today. My preferred mediums is typically ceramics and crochet, so I was very excited to get to crochet a lot of this piece. The skirt itself took about 2 weeks, so for reference, it is probably close to 10,000 stitches. There's a combination of stitches as well, which was also very intentional. That is sort of more an homage to my heritage, as my great-grandmother was actually the one who got me into crochet. I sort of wanted to recreate one of her blankets, but as a wearable and modern color-schemed piece. So it was extremely satisfying getting to feel that sense of root and storyline, and I am so glad that I could show something from my family. I dabbled a little bit in painting for this piece as well. If you see any chips, don't mind them, but there shouldn't be any. One of my favorite things about this piece is probably that if anyone else had done the piece, they would have had their own spin on it. There would have been a different color scheme. I just really like to deep dive into who people are. One thing about this piece that was also very important to me was a sense of affordability. It is sort of an expensive economy that we're living in right now, so hopefully other artists can feel a sense of inspiration from taking something in their everyday life and turning it into something beautiful. And last but not least, I would love to thank my family for supporting me. I truly wouldn't be where I am today, especially my older sister. She's always been of a great importance to me, so I'm so glad to be able to get to represent them here today. Thank you.
Okay. I don't think I can reach this. I'm gonna. Can I? Thanks. Okay, cool. Thank you. Amera wahopa yashtana suta akrits me ese kiwa me el suta. Hello. My name is Trushao Calabaza. I'm from Santo Domingo, Pueblo, here in New Mexico, and I am a photographer. Let's see. So my work explores my work explores something that can be felt, heard, and interacted with. I like to think of it as expanding photography beyond a flat surface, making it something that moves, breathes, and invites people in. My practice is very experimental. I work with black and white film, digital photography, cyanotypes, and anthotypes. I often like to add paint as well as cardboard and fabric. I don't believe art should stay in one lane. In my opinion, my way of working is actually from like end to start. So I come up with the image in my head and then I gather the materials and work from there. I just find it better. If I work the right way that most people do, I just hit a block. So that's the way I work. I've always been fascinated by how people interact with art. I love when someone leans in close or has the impulse to touch a piece. That moment of curiosity, that pull is what I aim for. I want people to feel the work, not just see it. Photography is often treated as purely visual, but I try to bring in other senses as well, like sound, texture, and even smell. When I stitch to a photograph or lay a fabric in wood, I'm thinking about how it feels in your hands and how light shifts across the surface. These small sensory details create a more personal connection between the viewer and my work. Much of my artwork connects back to my family, tradition, and cultural Pueblo. The things that ground me. Growing up in Kiwa, there was a rhythm in everyday life, in storytelling, and in making things by hand. That rhythm shapes how I work. When I bring my heritage into my practice, I'm not just documenting culture, I'm also participating in it. The act of building, stitching, and crafting in its own form of continuation, a way to honor what has been passed down while reimagining how it can live in contemporary art spaces. Now, for the piece that I have in the gallery, it is called Turning the Lineage. It is a project that focuses on 4 generations of my family, such as my grandmother, my mother, myself, and my daughter. Through portraits, I explore how strength, memory, and spirit are passed down through lineage. The handmade outer frame, detailed with traditional native designs, such as our mountains, root the work in heritage and craft, emphasizing how identity and tradition endure through time. The idea came from wanting to show how we exist within one another, how generation shapes the next. The rotating frames allow me to visually express that continuality, that sense of spirit that doesn't disappear but transforms as time moves forward. This project is very personal to me. It's a tribute to the women who came before me and who will continue the lineage. It's about love, resilience, and the unbroken line that connects us all. Going forward, I'd like to expand on this project to include more family members in my community, exploring how different lineages express their own forms of strength and continuality. It's also a way to help with storytelling, and I plan on doing more voice recordings on these pictures as well, to help to help share like what I hear on a normal basis, just because everybody's voices are unique. Ultimately, my goal as an artist is to rethink what photography can be, to make it something people can experience, not just look at. I hope that when people encounter my work, they feel invited to engage with it in their own way, to follow the curiosity, to imagine how it might sound or feel, and to connect through that shared sense of memory and presence. I am actually not graduating this semester, but if you guys liked some of my work, I will be doing a solo show next year in the spring from March 22nd to April 18th. So I can't wait to see you there if you plan on coming. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Perla Had Munoz, and I mostly am a painter. And so, starting out, I mostly was wanting to work with immigrants in America today. And so I was trying to depict the contemporary life of home, work, and society. As a Chicana artist, it felt necessary to display my perspective and how I viewed it. Those of not Latin American immigrants don't often see the circumstances or know what's happening, so it felt important for me to at least display these areas that are talked about or are seen often. However, it is very difficult sometimes to show every single circumstances and issues everyone has, so I did a more of a broader visual interpretation of mostly the work, home, and also just social life. So the first one that I started out with was actually but this is more like a chronological order with the work first, which is the most essential part for Latin Americans in America. It's the root of stability and support for oneself and the family. The workers often choose to do jobs that are not often documented as to be able to support themselves. So for this one, an example is a jornalero, and these are often men who are working outside. Typically, you find these people standing outside at a Walmart or Circle K, or usually like some gas station waiting to be picked up for work. And these people are contracted for one day at a time for a certain amount of hours to just work and hopefully support their families and themselves. The only time they get to relax is usually inside the truck, where they sleep, eat, and relax at the time that they're being transported to these areas. So that was the main one that I wanted to depict in this area of a worker. And then I wanted to relate back to the home, the longing to be back where they used to be, such as in Mexico, where they have these traditional tilings, talaveras that you see on the flooring or on areas on the wall, and as well just these brightly colored areas of the home that feel just comforting and just wanting to be back home, but knowing that these architectural will not be seen usually in America. And so this part in general, I wanted to look more at the political side and the circumstances as today, how usually people are now being forced and torn apart. However, we are trying our best to fight together and to stand as one, as a unity, which I was mainly showing in these. And then I wanted to circle back to the workers again. This one is mostly of field workers, and these field workers are usually up in the morning before the sun ever rises at 4. They don't always have a clear understanding of how much they're going to be paid. Most of the times it's in cents. And by the cents, it's by the row. So they're often not shown how much they're actually getting paid for, and it's just an endless thing that they will be doing all along the day, hoping just to get a good amount of pay. And then I went back to the architectural areas of wanting to be home again, and once again, the talavera and as well patterning architecture that is often seen in these areas. And then I wanted to end this out with another protest, however, as everybody as a unity as one, as well as including another worker who's on undocumented labor, who is usually just selling ice cream or corn in this corner street. However, I wanted to depict him as one of the people who would be in the safest in the circumstances, and everybody tries to help him out. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Noah Stewart. I graduate this semester, and something that's important about me is that I originally wasn't an art student. And I know that goes for everyone. Everyone wasn't an art student before they came to UNM to study art. But I mean, in the very, very literal sense, I originally came to study psychology. I burned through as much learning as fast as I could, and unsurprisingly found myself burned right out. I trudged on week after week, wading through obligations of classes and waiting for time to pass me by. I didn't want to do psychology. I had learned all that I wanted, and in that learning, I learned that I didn't want to do a damn thing with my major. At the time, I had it all. A perfect GPA, safe career goal, a loving fiancé, a white picket fence life plan, and none of it felt right. I had been told to do what I loved, and in the same breath, something that made me money. Frustrated, I started to look at my life and what I actually wanted, who I actually was. And that's when the cracks became clear. The wallpaper of the prison I was in began to crack, and I began to realize what was wrong. I was wrong. The life in front of me was perfect, for my fiancé's husband-to-be. Everything I knew came crashing down when I realized something core to my being. I was trans. I began to look at my life and see that none of it felt right or made sense, and I was the misaligned piece. Not wrong or broken, merely in the wrong story. This discord itched, festered until it bled. I was stuck on a ledge between a safe world and a world I felt safe in. It was a leap of faith, as they say. So I jumped. The landing was rough. My white picket fence mirage was vaporized on impact, eviscerating any chance of going back to who I was, but I didn't want to go back. One of the first things I did was re-exploring my interests and personality. I had the chance to recreate my life, get a clean break with the past, and I took it. I learned photography, taking intro to photo, and from there, I never left the art department. I was off to the races again, learning everything I could, as many mediums as possible, and how to be an artist. I had no idea what I was doing. I was clueless and motivated to cut my own path, typically against the common notions of art. After photography, I learned ceramics, metals, sculpture, and now street-inspired spray paint. My work is ever-changing. I find myself polarized between mediums, often combining sculpture and spray paint. My work focuses on many topics, primarily being queer in the modern day, as well as construction forms and the waste that industry produces. My work in Polarity, Nuclear Shadows, is by far my largest piece yet. A monolithic concrete slab held up by the rubble around it. Centering discussions around queer and trans erasure in the modern day, the shadow I cast is immutably queer, fighting against the oppressive darkness of today's society. Yet, I am bolstered by those in my life, held up through my struggles. Family, found, and birth support me as the rubble supports the larger slab. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Destiny Silos Macias. Quick disclaimer though, I am a special effects makeup artist. With that means that sometimes my designs can be on the gorier side. So some of the photos in my slideshow are going to depict some special effects pieces that I've done. Just wanted to give you guys a quick heads up on that. So again, I'm Destiny. I'm a special effects makeup artist. I'm also a multimedia artist, but I do primarily focus on special effects. So there's one. So during my first 2 years at UNM, I couldn't figure out exactly what I wanted to do with my life. I knew that I wanted to obtain my degree, I just couldn't figure out exactly what in. I had some ideas. I took some sociology classes, other random areas to kind of test the waters and try and figure out what I was going to do. But while dabbling in some film classes, I thought back to high school and I wondered to myself what felt right then. I remember my first time experimenting with special effects makeup for a school haunted house that I was in. I loved the act of sculpting and contributing to a story in such a way, and I was fascinated by how makeup could transform someone into a completely different being, and the endless possibilities of the craft. That fascination grew into a passion, and I began experimenting with different techniques and materials. My canvas tends to be untraditional, turning actors and performers into new characters with unique stories behind them. But I also express myself in other mediums through my paintings, if we get there. So with paintings on canvas, hand-sewn garments, pieces such as stretched felt, resin, wood, and really anything I can get my hands on to translate my ideas into reality. While creating for this specific exhibition, I was exploring my own personal and artistic growth, drawing inspiration from nature's resilience and beauty. This project allowed me to channel those emotions and experiences into my work, forming ethereal and organic designs to put into each piece. Art is vulnerable, and I feel that many of us, if not all of us, are hesitant to display that vulnerability and to present ourselves and what our mind and heart creates through us. But as you can see with this exhibition, creating art is a beautiful thing, and I think that many of us grew in our own individual ways with this experience. I am very privileged to have been a part of such a great group of artists to bring so many different visions to life. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello everybody. My name is Joey Johnston, and I am a current about to graduate BFA senior in painting and drawing. Going into college, I was super lost. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my art. I just knew I wanted it to be more technically sound. My art in high school was a little jank, if you forget the phrasing. But coming to the end of my college career, specifically this semester, I realized that while technical skill can get me very far, theming is what really makes art art, the message behind it. So I came up with a tough decision. What do I want my art to be about? My grandmother helped me a lot in this, unintentionally at first. My family is very sentimental. We rely a lot on memory and the foundations of our past. My grandmother recently moved in with my parents, and with that came her thousands upon thousands of photo albums. My grandmother is pictured here on the my left, your right. And this became a very beautiful thing, because as we spent hours going through these, I learned so much about my grandma, who is 90, her 20s, 30s, 40s, everything I could possibly know. And it was an interesting and miraculous experience purely because I was learning so much about how my grandmother processed memory and how she processed her life experiences. It became almost a religious experience, and I got to learn about parties that I had never seen. I got to learn about family outings that got scrapbooked into her photo albums that she didn't notice. And it got me thinking, how does memory relate? And how do I expunge a picture of my uncle in booty shorts out of my mind? So I started playing with memory. In 2024, I created this piece, which is not labeled, that must have messed up, my bad, called In Retrospect. It is a oil painting of a bar that does not exist except in the memories of a handful of people and really, really, really grainy Facebook photos. It is a bar that I grew up in, partially because my parents couldn't afford a babysitter and partially because that is where my found family came from. I wanted to focus more on the bar interior itself because while all the people are still in my life and I see them on a somewhat regular basis, the bar has been replaced with a Dickie's barbecue pit. I wanted to focus on the details, the lights, the memory of how it formed. And while this piece was the catalyst for my thought process, it took me another semester to figure out fully what I wanted to do. This piece is titled Crossroads. It is a part of a larger series that will be expanded on in the future, but currently only consists of 2 art pieces. Crossroads is a piece about memory. It is a piece about giving a voice to an object that has no mouth to tell its story. These signs are all over Albuquerque. They don't exactly correspond to the places they are. This is at San Pedro and Manal. It is a bowling ball and a bowling pin, but it's for Staples and a guitar center. The bowling alley I cannot find any photos of on Google anymore, but my father has told me stories about going there in the 80s when he was a kid. It is a place that I drive by every day, and I find its story fascinating, and I wanted to paint it, showing that while the buildings and the stores may come and go, the sign will be there for a very long time due to Albuquerque's weird zoning laws. The next piece in this series is Crossroads at the corner of 4th and San Lorenzo. This building currently is a Salmon's, but it was at one point a mom and pop locally owned grocery store that has long since been passed on to coexist between the Napa Auto Parts and AutoZone. It is a building I see every day on my commute to work, but I never have thought to take a second look at it until I had to stare at it for a very long time for this painting. It is a building that fascinates me because it stands out and does not fit the typical format of a parts store. And with that, I bring to a more memorable piece of me and my grandfather. Dealing with memory, I end up having the thought process of, I end up thinking about how my grandfather is someone I never knew, even though we did exist together for some time, about 1.5 years. He is someone who I have an idea of in my head. We exist in the same space, but I have no one to mourn. I do not know what he smells like. I do not know what he feels like. I only know what other people have told me. So his memory exists as a shadow and words, less as an actual person. And my final piece sewn for Capstone, called Generational Wealth, is less of a memory and more of a family portrait. It depicts the memories of trauma and substance abuse, which are important memories to maintain in life because they show us that we are all human, and while we do not fully understand the impacts of our existence yet, we are still human beings who are struggling and changing and are always trying to be better. Thank you so much. I hope you come to the art show next Thursday.
Do you want the microphone?
Maybe a little bit. Let's press down.
Hi, my name is Grigori Rogers. I'm an interdisciplinary artist. I'm a singer-songwriter and I tell stories through film. Me and my sister were born in Chelyabinsk, Russia, adopted 6 years apart from the frigid cold of the Siberian Oblast to the warm Albuquerque sun. We had a new opportunity to live the American dream and finally a family where life felt real and loving for the first time. I taught her how to walk. We had all the things we could possibly ever needed, and we had dreams of wanting to be in a band together with my dad and tour the world. As we got older, life started to change for us. All of a sudden, the past was seeping in to the present, and we had no way of dealing with it. We didn't really know what it was, and we searched for a way to heal from the things that were stuck in our souls. My sister looked up to me, and I didn't really have any answers for her. We were still somehow stuck in a lonely crib in the orphanage, though we had the whole world open to us. My sister ended up passing away 3 years ago when I was at C&M studying for a film degree. We spread her ashes at Hummingbird Music Camp, a place where we remembered her happiest playing music and being with others. It turned my life upside down and started me on this journey I am now, where I was once doing creative stuff because I liked it and I wanted to be famous and rich. Now I was learning how to use it as a tool to heal from trauma, and it kind of became my life mission to figure it out to help other people that are struggling through creativity. Because I always thought I only fit through the cracks. I've seen through my sister's pain and the world's pain along with mine. In many of my songs, the voice that we both never had. I learned that things don't get easier the more you heal, but the energy shifts, so it has more wisdom and joy surrounding. And this picture, the picture on the left was we spread our ashes 3 years ago, and the picture on the right was a couple months ago. And I like to think that we have healed a little bit from the 3 years. I didn't force myself to perform and push myself to do more things because I didn't want to waste this time I had. I always had to express myself internally and never could really express myself outwardly. I write songs about the mountains, about the dogs, and all the feelings that surround me. I did my first open mic almost a year ago. I performed in a song contest at a musical and wine festival. I did my first paid gig all within this last year. And I feel like the momentum just keeps pushing me forward. I also have a fun side because I don't like being in this emotional space 24/7. I refuse to be sad all the time because healing comes in all forms from experience all of life's emotions, and plus making people laugh is more enjoyable than making people cry. So I write a horror script about a cactus that goes around and kills people. I like to tell stories and build characters that express the realness of the world, and I want to keep things entertaining and not be too serious about anything. And here's some stop motion. Oops. This other one doesn't play. I'll be performing at Keller Hall next Thursday, a few songs about my journey through life and a couple songs about a cactus. I hope to see you there.
Yat esh doshane siskani nishle do taglini bashichin auto ki ani dashich. Greetings, my relatives and people. I am Kaylee Begay. I am born into Clamptree and born for Water Flows Together. My maternal grandfather's clans are Towering House and my paternal grandfather's clans are Salt. This is who I am as a Diné person. I come from the Navajo Nation and I am a printmaker and photographer. At UNM, I've been able to dabble with both. I originally came here to focus on focus on painting and drawing. And then my first semester, I took one drawing class and took photography and printmaking and fell in love with it. I do a combination of photographs and drawings and then put them together into a printmaking process. On your guys' right, the far right, is a screen print that I've done, and it's a combination of old photographs that I was gifted from my mother. My father was a big part of my life. And then as a young Native American, it's hard to go back home and then come back to the city. You go home and they tell you you're a city native, which means you don't prioritize what they prioritize on the res. And then you come to the city and you don't quite fit in either. So I wanted to predict something that was more heartfelt for me, which is home. And as a young Native who barely knows how to speak her own language, can understand it, write it, and read it, I like to put it into photographs and prints. This print was supposed to be for my sisters, which they will be getting this Christmas, and it means Nejone, which in my language means you are beautiful. I feel like as young girls coming into this world, whether you are Native or not, it is hard when you get stereotypes put on you. Like, you're supposed to dress this way, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do this to your hair, your makeup's supposed to look like this, when I don't think that matters. I wanted them to know that I love them for who they are, whatever they do. If they cut their hair short, shave it off, I don't care. And then my final project for this capstone class was on the idea of alcohol. Like, I can consume alcohol but don't want to when it comes to having feelers. My father died from alcohol, and I had just recently lost an uncle this summer from alcohol use as well. And I feel like as a Native American, you hear Native American slurs about how Natives used to drink way back when. So I was trying to think how I could go around this, how I could take back the word of Native. So I wanted to put a combination of, like, how does being Native affect alcohol usage? Like, on the reservation, you're on these little tiny plots of land far miles away from your nearest neighbor. You go into town, you buy all the alcohol, and then you go home. So the more you do that, the more likely you're gonna die. And I feel like as a young person, it's not like that in the city. You can basically walk down the street, buy yourself alcohol, and go home and call it a day. And I, as a young person, don't want to go clubbing or bar hopping, and I also do partake in a beer once in a while, but I also bike as well. I feel like I'm able to use other things besides a drug to make you feel numb. And to push that, that's why the colors are poppy, because I feel like having a beer every once in a while isn't bad. And then the beadwork around it is supposed to make it pop as well and bring back the heritage that I come from, where I'm from. And that little mountain that you see on that box is my home, where I have memories, fond memories, but also devastating memories. I feel like the blue comes into play because I do not know where my sisters will land. They tell us that they won't drink, but you don't know until they hit the age 21, or if they decide to try it when they leave from home. So this is my project. Thank you. Yeah.
Maybe, I feel like I'm pretty loud. So go for it. Okay, and then the clicker down. Okay, cool. Hi everyone, my name is Hannah Mayhew. I'm a singer-songwriter, a writer, and I also do painting. And I want to start this talk by talking about community and the people around me. I started as a painter. I took an art class when I was 11, and I fell in love with it. I think getting to just express myself in this way was so impactful to me when I was young, and there are so many people in my life who continue to encourage me and point me in the direction towards this. I did art in middle school, I went to high school, I met more friends, and I started doing music, and I fell in love with music. I found a people and a community and a group of friends around me who loved the same things I loved. They were singers and songwriters and painters and storytellers and so many wonderful things that just encouraged me to continue to explore the things that I'm still exploring today and I went to school for here at UNM. I would not be doing the major that I'm doing if not for the friends and family in my life who pushed me to this point and helped me to just continue to do art. I found so many more people who cared about the things that I cared about here at UNM. I found a tighter community and relationship with my friends. I found other musicians who identified with what I identified with, who were just fantastic writers. And I think for a long time when I started here, I dealt with a lot of these feelings of like, is this where I'm supposed to be? Is this where I belong? And in getting to continue to just learn more and grow in a community of other artists, I found that I could express more of myself and more of my authenticity in my art. And a lot of that also came in tandem with me growing in my faith. I found a community of people who believed in the same things I believed in, and I was able to express that in my art. And I wouldn't be doing the songwriting and the art that I'm doing if not for my faith. I think that is such a big connection point with the projects and the work that I'm doing now. This is one example that ties all of that together, I think, in a really beautiful way, which was a painting that I did for a friend for her birthday, and it's got a bunch of like Bible verses on it. And this, I think, was one of the things that helped me come up with the idea for the project that I wanted to do for this class. I wanted to do something that put together the music and the faith and the people around me. And so I am working on, and my project for this capstone class was around the idea of how do we interact with and experience the wonder and the just amazing things in our world. And in my research, I found a couple different tools to do that, and they are called spiritual temperaments. And so I decided I was going to write a set of songs for each one of those, how we experience wonder in these different mediums, whether it's looking at nature, looking at like written things, looking at history. There are so many amazing, wonderful things that we have the opportunity to encounter and to admire in our world. And I have so many people in my life who have shown me these things and taught me what that looks like. And so as I continue to grow in my faith and in my community and in my art, I want to keep exploring these ideas of wonder and just how we are able to encounter the world and how that looks like for me through my faith, through these different spiritual temperaments that I've spent the past semester looking at. So I will be performing at Keller Hall next Thursday. I really hope you guys can come, and thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Allison Haig. I'm originally from Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and I'm currently finishing my BFA in painting and drawing here at UNM. A lot of my work comes from the experiences I've had in the natural world, especially since moving to New Mexico in 2022. Working on a berry farm in Wisconsin in the formative years of my childhood taught me the importance of gratitude and outdoor preservation and conservation work. My time working and living at a communal living community in Washington taught me the importance of my place and voice in a community and the importance of hard work. Rock climbing has taken over my life in the past couple of years and has given me a new perspective, both literally and metaphorically. Continually putting myself into overwhelming physical and mentally intense situations has forced me to recognize the capabilities of my body, while simultaneously remaining curious about where my limits are. These experiences shape how I think about time, rhythm, and energy in my art, along with influencing the symbols that are prevalent throughout my paintings. These were some of the core focuses of the Transcendental Painting Group, who lived in northern New Mexico in the early 1930s, which is a big inspiration for my own work. I imagine myself participating in the lineage of female artists that are working and living in New Mexico. My work is primarily drawing and painting, using watercolors, oil paints, and sometimes chalk pastels. I'm drawn to these mediums because of the softness and immediacy that are possible with them. I also love the simplicity and availability of these mediums, allowing me to create artwork wherever I am. The images tend to emerge gradually. A lot of the landscapes and bodies I make come from intuition, not necessarily an exact place or person, but a kind of atmosphere I carry. This past summer, I spent my time living and working and climbing in Yosemite National Park. This experience evolved my painting practice immensely because of the limitations it added. When I got out there, I was promised housing through my job, but that fell through and I lived in my car for 3 months. And I had limitations to the art supplies I could bring along, so I brought watercolor and 4x6-inch paper, which I began creating what I now call stream of consciousness paintings, which are these small watercolors you can see here. They oftentimes have split compositions and whatever image comes to mind at the moment. This will often be landscapes of the place I'm at, personified animals, tiny people, or whatever strikes me as interesting in the moment. In my more abstract oil paintings, I'm trying to capture a sense of stillness and awe. Not dramatic or grand or sublime, but something quieter. Something like standing in the deserts of Gallup with your friends, surrounded by huge round sandstone cliffs and sundogs illuminating the sky, or looking down from a climb and feeling the air move around you. I find immense inspiration and gratitude in these small, reverent moments. In a culture that is often fast, ironic, and insincere, I feel that paying attention and feeling something sincerely can be a radical act. Aside from my watercolor practice, I paint abstractions representing the inner world rather than the outer, more figurative world. These paintings usually take around a month of layering, using a glazing technique, allowing the paint to dry thoroughly between each step. I'm interested in how color can carry light and temperature, and how a shift in tone or softness can hold a feeling more strongly than a recognizable detail can. I don't want to document a landscape, I want to evoke the memory of being in it. I'm currently working towards my thesis show in the spring at John Summers Gallery, which centers around the idea of nesting. I'm interested in how a landscape can feel like a place of shelter, not in a literal sense, but in an emotional way we carry certain places inside of us, drawing from the memories of the new experiences I've had. I plan to continue pushing this sense of atmosphere, transformation, and memory through illustrative watercolors and abstracted oil paintings. I'm drawn to how this relates to the feeling of being held or safe within the natural world. There's a kind of comfort in recognizing that change is constant, that nothing stays fixed, but things can still feel whole or meaningful in their in-between states. The uncertainty of life can be gentle, even homey and protective if we let it. What I hope is that the work offers a moment of recognition and gratitude. A reminder that even as things shift, there are places and memories and moments that can hold us and keep us grounded. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Hi, my name is Emma Buck Anderson, and I am an artist and an addict. I was born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I'll start by saying thank you for being here. Who I am to you is likely several performances happening simultaneously. Multitudes are a blessing and a curse. The mediums through which I translate are art and ecology, photography, metals, sculpture, performance, and light and sound. My muses are particles of darkness and light. They deserve all the praise and profit. Unsurprisingly, my work centers itself around personal experiences of mine. I don't want to talk about or explain them. They seep out. Keywords in my process are perception, intimacy, and spirituality. A comfort, a fairy tale, a process. I aim for my work to land as a love letter to the void and as an invitation to connect. Empathy, harm reduction, and restorative justice are conceptually important to my process. Tiana said, here's this: a distant and rarely fulfilling relationship with faith. A strong conviction that the rain will come. A choice to believe this regardless of if it does, and adding an I and an R to the front of the sixth word to make another correct. A strong bond with the gentle brutality of complete oblivion. Dulled and rusted scraps of who I was before the torpifying world. The whole nauseating Sisyphusian continuum of human experience and other surprises. 3 spines, a book, a body, a defense. My hands play a part. Connections, necessary gracelessness. Find your own meaning in my work if you care to. If you care to, surf waves of consciousness. Participate if you care to, as it is radical. There exists a gray area between what is spoken and what is heard. Get in, I see you. My work delves into how desert environments, cultures, and colloquial social and spiritual practices interact with one another in the context of their constant evolution. I'm drawn to the passion and urgency of the extremism which creates itself in the desert biome, a place which is undoubtedly that at times. Fear, which is so often associated with the extreme, shapes the world around us from all directions, from existentialism to nihilism, generosity to severity. Weapons made from metal and chemicals which never agreed to be used for malevolent purposes, to incite fear or atrocities. My disdain regarding this disrespect of materials and central nervous system permeates atomically. Transmutation mends. Fear morphs into love, pain into relief, thirst into gratitude. Ethical persistence. But if I go out there, necessary gracelessness. I was born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico. My name is Emma Buck Anderson. I grew up in awe of the cruelty and relief of the desert biome, a part of the whole that knows what it is to live in drought or some form of this, what it is to hover over the promise of devotional fulfillment. Deeply affecting to me, perception, love, death, paradoxes, what surrounds us in the natural world. Deeply affecting to me are the spaces I traipse through, both curated and candid. Sensitivity to environments, the gentle power of ecological independence. How this behaves in relation to how every one of us creates and destroys. Observed waves behave differently. To feel a closeness to materials, adhering myself. Concept and action, an isomorphic current of energy that pulls and pushes, allowing my body to communicate those things that I otherwise cannot. Emotion in fleeting moments. A spectrum of passion that continually changes form. A slaughtered language communicated without words connects everyone and everything. products of the mind that manifest in our physical world, resistance, feeling, laughing, crying, dancing, breaking. Thank you.
The down button is not Thank you.
Hello, I am Eric Case. I am a BAIA graduate this semester, and I am an interdisciplinary artist who does multiple mediums. I feel like my work is constantly changing, constantly evolving, specifically when it comes to mediums. I try to always say, whatever works, works, and try to find as many different ways to make my art come to life as possible. While I did not come into college with the same where I am now, I have always loved art. I knew that it was the only thing I ever wanted to do with my life. So I found myself really surprised when I shifted from mainly acting and singing and creating music to playwriting in my junior year. I found this medium that I had not touched before, and yet I fell in love with it. It became something that I found that actually expressed everything I wanted it to. I've always loved to write. Words have always been super important to me. And yet it took until actually sitting down and writing a play to realize that words can be so much more. My favorite part of theater has and always will be the collaboration and working with amazing people and being able to actually have others bring my stories to life, I found is the best way to express myself. For my senior capstone, I wrote a play called La Galería de la Muerte, which follows a photo exhibition. That's fine. Which follows a photo exhibition that the script follows along with. The 5 different photos in the show were all based around different emotions and different conversations about death. I find that in general, I tend to come back to the topic of death over and over again because there's so much to be explored in the macabre and in the darkness. I love to talk about things that people shy away from. The first photo in the collection was called Stillness, and the conversation surrounding that is about apathy towards death and what it means to not only not believe in an afterlife, but not care about the fact that there is no afterlife. I wanted to incorporate this to really talk about something that is more taboo, which is the idea of detaching yourself from huge cultural standpoints about what is and is not considered to be comforting. The next photo in the collection was of Native American artwork, which represent and followed a discussion about what it means to connect to my culture. I'm Indigenous Mexican. However, due to colonization and adoption in my family and all, I have lost a lot of the cultural standpoints that connect me to my heritage and what it means to be an Indigenous person. And personally, I am trying to reconnect quite often. And I wanted to add that into my work, especially around conversations of death and all. One of the lines in the play is, sometimes I think the only way I'll connect to my culture is in death. And I find that, especially now, being so being so far separated from my history and all that, it's important to realize what aspects you still have connection to and where you can still find moments of peace within that. The next photo in the collection was one depicting the splitting apart of a person. It is a conversation surrounding what it means to be picked apart and what it means to pick yourself apart. The scene that followed it had the person's organs being completely ripped out, followed by a monologue about what it means to want to live and what it means to want to die. I find that connection and truly showing how vulnerable it is in that moment of what it means to exist is super important. The next photo was of a set of tarot cards. I personally am pagan. So for me, bringing spirituality and death together has always been something that connects very heavily. And that includes with finding includes finding moments of what it means to be important in that, what it means to connect everything you do in life to where you are going to end up. The final scene was a picture of a person on a bridge with the Grim Reaper behind them. This scene incorporated another medium I work in, which is poetry, and shows that and depicted a conversation between a person about to kill themselves, speaking with very poetic language, and deaf speaking plainly. All of this ties back into my work over and over again with how I love to incorporate as many different emotions and as many different points of view as possible. I find that perspective is something that is very important regardless of the medium you're using, and that it can change everything about the same topic. That two different people will have that can experience the same thing and come away with two different stories to tell. And with that, I try to incorporate that into my art a lot. I want to explore beyond myself and what it means to really be human in these spaces. And thank you. This is the photo called Connection for the piece about culture, or scene about culture. This one is called Certain for that connection between, or existence, I guess. This one is called Personal, which depicts the tarot implements. And that's the last one. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. My name is Lillian Link Rivera, and I have a little poem for you guys, or speech, so much. So my name is Lillian Link Rivera. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming out today. I am a conceptual visual artist working primarily in photography and business. My major here at the University of New Mexico focuses in business and photography. But before I talk about where I am now, I wanted to take you back to this journey started, because my exhibition called Big Sleep, the exhibition you're about to see is really a meditation on thresholds, and I've crossed a lot of them before getting here. When I started at UNM, I was figuring out what it meant to be an artist. I was experimenting, failing, trying again. Then I studied abroad, in Asia, Thailand specifically. And something shifted. Being away from everything familiar forced me to see differently, to understand what absence and presence are not opposites, but similar. They're collaborators. So I want to thank everybody here in my class for collaborating with me. Big Sleep came out of the realization this exhibition contemplates the quiet collapse of an era, the moment when familiarity dissolves like nostalgia, lingers like an afterimage. It's about endings, but not the thing that closes things off. It's the kind that opens something up for the future. Now, let me talk about how this work actually gets made, because for me, the process is inseparable from the concept. I work with alternative printing methods, processes, such as printing on fabric, on discarded paper, wax paper, like kitchen wax paper. Interesting. I'm interested in what happens when an image isn't fixed by traditional senses, when I can bleed, fade, or warp, or barely hold on to something. Because that's what memory does. That's what transformation looks like. Sorry. This semester I've been on what I call ballin' on a budget. This semester I've been taking discarded objects, things that I find near the trash, by the rubbish. Same with most of my frames. I build my frames and I actually found this 3 by 4 foot plexiglass by the garbage, and I made that into my piece. And it's gonna be like home decor. That's the business perspective from me. At first, I thought it was about being a college broke student, but then I realized that this is the work. Disappearance, remaining, finding value in what's been discarded or overlooked is exactly what Big Sleep represents. It's about when you're working with the materials that already have history, that someone else threw away. You're literally practicing the act of seeing absence of presence. You're transforming what is meant to be forgotten. Showing examples of alternative processes move with you. It breathes. When I use discarded paper or wax paper, the process becomes translucent. You can literally see through it, which asks you to consider what lies beneath. What's on the other side that we're thinking about? These aren't just aesthetic choices. They are philosophical ones. Each material is a decision that I made is asking the same question my work asked. How do we hold on to something while letting it go? As an artist, I've also learned how to navigate the business side of this practice. One of my teachers says that art and business can't go together, which I disagree. As an artist, I've also learned how to navigate the business side. Resourcefulness isn't about just materials. It's about the business sustainability practice, finding opportunities, networking, applying for grants and residencies, documenting your work. My approach has been to treat every limitation as a creative problem to solve. No budget for professional frames. Learn to build them and make it part of the aesthetic. No access to expensive printmaking equipment, which we do here at UNM. That's exciting. But experimenting with the alternative process that works in your kitchen if you can't afford a studio. Make it work so we can create elsewhere. This isn't romanticizing struggle, though. It's recognizing that the constraints we also often shape what the most honest work is. Big Sleep exists in the liminal space between what is achieved and remained as uncertain. This is exactly where I am now, standing at the threshold. In this capstone, this isn't the end of my undergrad degree. It's a meditation on what's becoming next. I might pursue a master's degree, possibly abroad again. I was thinking about London. My mom doesn't want me to go to London, but I'm a London girl at heart. Or I might stay here and work in New Mexico, building my practice in this landscape that has so much to offer. Honestly, I don't know yet, but I'm learning to be okay with the uncertainty. To see is not a lack of direction, but an openness to possibility. Because of transformation, I've learned, often described as rest, and the future quietly begins where the past falls. That's when Big Sleep is ultimately about trusting the threshold, honoring the endings, and understanding that disappearance is not just another form of presence. So thank you, and I hope you have a great life. Shout out to my mom, and shout out to Andrea Polly. What's up?
Do you want a microphone? Yeah. Okay. This is down arrow is to the next slide. Okay. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Pierre Charette, and I'm a graphic designer who works in what I like to call the space between art and everyday life, corporate design. There's often this idea that corporate and artists don't belong in the same sentence, but I've learned that without these roles, design wouldn't be as accessible or impactful in people's daily lives. As a corporate artist, I get to share my creativity with people every day, not just in galleries, but in the world around us. My time at UNM has been eye-opening. I've learned that as artists, we're never limited to the opportunities presented to us, but we create them. I've pushed to make space for artists who appreciate the process, the principles, and the understanding of art itself. Every day we see graphic design without even realizing it. The billboards you pass on I-25, the menu from your favorite restaurant, the website you shop, even the memes you share with your friends. All of that is design. My work connects with people far beyond my immediate community, but through the brands that I help shape. Branding is an identity. My job is to understand who and what makes a brand, its story, values, and the people behind it. Because my work isn't for me alone, it's in collaboration with others. I help bring ideas to life for people who may not have the skill set to create something, but have something meaningful to say. I like to think of myself as a vessel of communication and representation using creativity as my language. Over time, I've realized that design is everywhere. It shapes how people move through the world. When I approach a design project, I always start with questions: what's the message? Who are we talking to? And how do we want them to feel? Every conversation is about connecting the idea with the outcome, making sure that design is understood, remembered, and felt. Does it grab your attention? Does it spark curiosity? Does it make you stop and think? That's how I measure success. Working in a corporate environment means I practice my craft every day, meeting deadlines, managing projects, and collaborating within brand guidelines. And while those guidelines can sometimes feel limiting, they also challenge me. Technology keeps evolving, and that's one of the most inspiring parts of my career. I'm constantly learning, experimenting, and adapting. I'm not the same designer I was 5 years ago, and I won't be the same 5 years from now, and that's the beauty of growth through design. One project that really shaped me was when I was designing wayfinding ADA-compliant signage for my previous job. Many of you have probably walked through the art building here on campus looking for a specific room. Well, I designed those signs before I even enrolled at UNM. At the time, that project challenged me more than anything I'd done before. The workload, the development process, the technical standards. But now when I walk those halls, I see more than room numbers. I see my growth, my persistence, and a physical mark on where I've been heading. And that's what being a corporate artist means to me, leaving marks that live in the real world. Corporate art reaches people who may never walk into a gallery, making design the most public form of art. Being a corporate artist means bringing creativity into everyday life, one brand, one project, and one conversation at a time. It's a constant practice of learning, adapting, and creating connections through design. Thank you for letting me share my story, and I hope you all see the design around you a little differently.
Do you want microphone or no?
No mic, but how to use the clicker?
It's the down arrow is the next slide.
Okay.
Call me Finn. Like a fish, like Fenris, como el fin. The end. Ah, we can go home. Just kidding. I did not want to write about polarity. This is a theme fraught with too much black and white. Bless the walkers of the in-between in the liminal way. But here we are, genius. You're part of an ecosystem. You're a thing within a flow, Finn. French philosopher Gilles Deleuze describes philosophy as an art of concept creation, and within that, everything is made up of flows. Flows of ideas, energy, resources, identity that move between one thing to another, acted upon by other forces. This is how I can stomach polarity. It feels less of a trap. Maybe we've caught ourselves between a rock and a hard place, but let's not stay there forever. I'm interested in the river that wears and erodes the sharpened borders, the aspen roots that spiderweb through stone, the queer ontologies that say, no, you're not just one thing, but a compost pile of many things, and you speak with many voices at once. Here we are, revolving around the point, pulled magnetically by our grand theme and my dogma against it. So having said my cosmic piece, let's go back to Earth. Of course, I cannot help but fulfill what I rebel against. I'm a very prolific artist. The range comes with the territory, so see here for yourself the ways my work oscillates from one pole to another. Sometimes I make art that is dreamlike and sometimes more real. Sometimes the meaning is clear and sometimes obscured by layers of complexity. I am said to make witty things and be unaware of it, and I am said to make beautiful things and have little to say about them. It took multiple professors to convince me I liked to write, and then I wrote an essay for my honors thesis show that reached 35 pages before I added pictures. Let us be walking contradictions. My journey through UNM began with a different journey, a 3,000 some odd mile road trip alone across the US, where I fell in love with the fierce wildness of the Southwest, the endless blue expanse of the sky. I came back to New Mexico for the arts and ecology program here at UNM, 1,000 miles away from the deep green forest I grew up in, into these great, glorious hills of Cholla and Opuntia. Looking back from where I stand now, and oh, the great yawning precipice of something new. I can look to specific moments, a deck of cards with people's stories about mountains, a giant chomping full-body fish head mask, learning how to sword fight, a couple camping trips in the Holy Ghost campground, a stick and poke tattoo at the top of a hiking trail. But to see from here some great narrative and miss the quiet days of living, you can't get the full picture without friends and community and the daily tending to the garden that is learning and becoming. Here we spin together in Earth's magnetic orbit, season after season softening into something new. Time is short, and there's much to say about art and the process of art making, let alone mine. I am more interested in yours, or else these are empty words. Being an artist outside of community seems a remarkably lonely existence, so from my own practice to yours, here's what I can offer. What would it look like to enchant your world? Here we stand in the land of enchantment, where the explosive vibrance of indigenous tradition sings out to the land, and the land echoes back in kind. Enchant, make magic, enchant, sing to, speak to, chant to. What stories do you carry? What memories weave through the threads and patterns of the ways you understand yourself? I make my art to make sense of living, weaving earth and fiber and ink and clay together to enchant and encode my thoughts into a body mnemonic, a thing to hold, a way to remember, to give a face to concept. I write a love letter for the cracks in the mud of the summertime river because I must, because the living world is worth loving. This is why I make art. Let us become compost, not a magnetic pole towards one side or the other. Let us be cave painters. Let us be mages and mystics. Let us be unsettlers in every sense of the word. Let us be stray gods. Let us be heralds of the apocalypse and heralds of the days after we survive it again, again, again. Let us rest, too. All of your ghosts are holy. Call me every name for wandering home, for the path is long and winding, and there are many great mysteries to be found off trail. But we're all still walking there somewhere, and hopeful days and hard days and living days are all ahead. Thanks.
Meditative and challenging. Challenge is the most rewarding aspect of creating art. I believe that's why I took up printmaking as a secondary medium. Printmaking continuously pushes me out of my comfort zone and away from the arbitrary rules I once set for myself when it came to making art. This shift in my art practices is reflected in my imagery. For a long time, I didn't like painting myself. I didn't like the idea of putting myself out there as directly as the portraiture I was creating was. It wasn't until recently that I accepted my portraiture doesn't have to be quite so objective, and that there's far more to show of myself than my physical body. I had a breakthrough last fall in a painting class when I was first challenged to think of creating a body of work. I'd never had to think about telling a narrative throughout multiple pieces, and I figured the story I could best tell would be my own. I chose to personify myself and my body as various fruits, as an examination of how the female body is often objectified, sexualized, consumed, and left to rot, and as an exploration of my relationship with womanhood, gender identity, and my relationship with autonomy. This marked two considerable shifts from the traditional portraiture I had been creating since high school. I was painting myself and it wasn't my face. That series of paintings served as a catalyst to my current project, where I've been further examining my relationship with my autonomy. Over the past year, I've been working on a collection of painting and prints that touch on imposter syndrome. This is something that has become a more prominent theme in my life as I've navigated adulthood and the independence I've gained as I've become an individual attempting to grow away from the roles I played in my family dynamic and the roles I've habitually fallen into as woman. For a long time, I was just an observer, but I now create self-portraiture, something that has been my focus for a year or so. Learning a new medium helped me appreciate myself and my capabilities, leading to the realization that I may just be worthy of being the subject of the work that I spend so much time making. I may be an introvert and an observer by nature, but I've moved past looking in from the outside. I have my own stories to tell, and I hope people will observe them with care. I am incredibly grateful to every instructor I've had the honor of learning under during my time at UNM. I'm just so overwhelmed with how grateful I am to have been here. I would like to specifically thank Yoshiko Shimano, Karsten Greitney, and Adam Berman of the printmaking department. I learned more from them and the printmaking community in the past 2 years than in the rest of my academic studies. Because of the community they focus on cultivating, I was able to find my people, which is something I never thought I would be able to do as someone who didn't know how to put myself out there. I wouldn't be here graduating without that community on a metaphorical level, and I physically would not be here if it wasn't for my roommate driving me here every week and to every class that I needed to haul around a portfolio or a painting. So I'm very grateful to my people and to all of the people that showed up here today.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Of course. Do you want the microphone on or off? Let's go for off.
Okay. Hello, my name is Z Paul, and I am a BFA, a Bachelor of Fine Arts. I am a multimedia artist. I see the value of arts as a trade and as a means of replenishing and reworking community and cultural structure. And so in my art, I often work towards challenging just generally the world around me. I promise I know what I'm doing. I don't. Cool. I've been doing art for a very long time, since I was very little, and I have been kind of in and out of it, and I've also been in and out of writing, which is something that I really valued, and college has been a lot in that I've had to really do a lot of soul searching and figure out who I am. And so these last 2 years, even though I've had a 4-year degree, these last 2 years have been in the art department, and it's been really amazing. And now what I really want is to go on into the world and just make art, and to go do so at my own pace and in my own time and in my own materials with my own thoughts and voice inside my head type thing. And so I just get a bit closer to that every day, and it's really exciting. I'm really ready to just jump into art and everything that it can and will be for and from me. My favorite thing is ceramics. I love ceramics. I think that it's one of the closest art materials to the human form, and that like physically we are deeply connected to clay and the materials of clay, and that they come from deep in the earth. And I find the earth very fascinating because there's so much of it, and there's like a wood floor and a foundation and then dirt and then more dirt, and we don't know what's under that dirt, and we've been here a long time, and there's a lot of mysteries. I'm just gonna do my thing. Thank you.